1889. They vote but do not print. The head tells you pretty promptly whether the food is satisfactory or not, and everybody hears and thinks the whole man has spoken. It is a delusion. Only his taste and his smell have been heard from. Important, both, in a way, but these do not build up the man, and preserve his life, and fortify it. The little child is permitted to label its drawings. This is a cow, this is a horse, and so on. This protects the child. It saves it from the sorrow and wrong of hearing its cows and its horses criticized as kangaroos and workbenches. A man who is whitewashing a fence is doing a useful thing. So also is the man who is adorning a rich man's house with costly frescoes. And all of us are sane enough to judge these performances by standards proper to each. Now then, to be fair, an author ought to be allowed to put upon his book an explanatory line. This is written for the head. This is written for the belly and the members. And the critic ought to hold himself in honor bound to put away from him his ancient habit of judging all books by one standard, and thenceforth follow a fairer course. The critic assumes every time that if a book doesn't meet the cultivated class standard, it isn't valuable. Let us apply his law all around, for if it is sound in the case of novels, narratives, pictures, and such things, it is certainly sound and applicable to all the steps which lead up to culture and make culture possible. It condemns the spelling book, for a spelling book is of no use to a person of culture. It condemns all school books and all schools which lie between the child's primer and Greek, and between the infant school and the university. It condemns all the rounds of art which lie between the cheap terracotta groups and the Venus de Medici, and between the chromo and the transfiguration. It requires Whitcomb Riley to sing no more till he can sing like Shakespeare, and it forbids all amateur music and will grant its sanction to nothing below the classic. Is this an extravagant statement? No. It is a mere statement of fact. It is the fact itself that is extravagant and grotesque. And what is the result? This. And it is sufficiently curious. The critic has actually imposed upon the world the superstition that a painting by Raphael is more valuable to the civilizations of the earth than is a chromo, and the august opera than the hurdy-gurdy, and the villagers' singing society, and Homer than the little everybody's poet whose rhymes are in all mouths today and will be in nobody's mouth next generation. and the Latin classics than Kipling's far-reaching bugle note, and Jonathan Edwards than the Salvation Army, and the Venus de Medici than the plaster cast peddler. The superstition, in a word, that the vast and awful comet that trails its cold luster through the remote abysses of space once a century, and interests and instructs a cultivated handful of astronomers, is worth more to the world than the sun, which warms and cheers all the nations every day and makes the crops to grow. If a critic should start a religion, it would not have any object but to convert angels, and they wouldn't need it. The thin top crust of humanity, the cultivated, are worth pacifying, worth pleasing, worth coddling, worth nourishing and preserving with dainties and delicacies, it is true. But to be caterer to that little faction is no very dignified or valuable occupation. It seems to me it is merely feeding the overfed, and there must be small satisfaction in that. It is not that little minority who are already saved that are best worth trying to uplift, I should think, but the mighty mass of the uncultivated who are underneath. That mass will never see the old masters. That side is for the few. But the chromo maker can lift them all one step upward toward appreciation of art. They cannot have the opera, but the hurdy-gurdy and the singing class lift them a little way toward that far light. They will never know Homer, but the passing rhymester of their day leaves them higher than he found them. They may never even hear of the Latin classics, but they will strike step with Kipling's drum beat, and they will march. For all Jonathan Edwards' help, they would die in their slums, but the Salvation Army will beguile some of them up to pure air and a cleaner life. They know no sculpture. The Venus is not even a name to them, but they are a grade higher in the scale of civilization by the ministrations of the plaster cast than they were before it took its place upon the mantle and made it beautiful to their unexacting eyes. Indeed, I have been misjudged from the very first. I have never tried in even one single instance to help cultivate the cultivated classes. I was not equipped for it, either by native gifts or training, and I never had any ambition in that direction, but always hunted for bigger game, the masses. I have seldom deliberately tried to instruct them, but have done my best to entertain them. To simply amuse them would have satisfied my dearest ambition at any time, for they could get instruction elsewhere, and I had 2 chances to help to the teacher's 1. For amusement is a good preparation for study and a good healer of fatigue after it. My audience is dumb, it has no voice in print, and so I cannot know whether I have won its approbation or only got its censure. Yes, you see, I have always catered for the belly and the members, but have been served like the others, criticized from the culture standard, to my sorrow and pain, because, honestly, I never cared what became of the cultured classes. They could go to the theater and the opera. They had no use for me and the melodeon. And now at last I arrive at my object and tender my petition, making supplication to this effect, that the critics adopt a rule recognizing the belly and the members, and formulate a standard whereby work done for them shall be judged. Help me, Mr. Lang. No voice can reach further than yours in a case of this kind, or carry greater weight of authority.